He's been there, boots on the ground, bunker gear on his back, coffee in hand, and faith in his heart. This is the RB experience. From dog tags to bunker gear, the real-life stories of Royce Bottoms. Army veteran, firefighter, minister, and the kind of guy who's seen the wild side of life and lived to tell about it, with a grin and a gospel truth. From close calls and good laughs to hard lessons and quiet prayers, this podcast brings you behind the scenes of service and straight into the heart of faith. Brought to you by Beyond the 12 Ministry, these episodes remind us that even in the toughest times, God's never out of reach, and a good story always brings us closer. So grab your coffee, pull up a chair, and get ready. This is the RB experience, and it's just getting started.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the RB Experience. I am your host with the most, Royce Bottoms. Glad to have you here. If you joined me for the very first episode, you got to hear a lot about the fire service and the military and a little bit of everything with life. All right. This is our second episode. The very first episode, I am assuming, was accepted pretty decent because here I am doing a second episode. This is a series, a sub-series, I should say, of the Beyond the 12 Ministries. It sits under that banner. That is my ministry that I do online. And I also do a podcast since 2018 entitled Jesus in a Cup of Joe. Now, if you want faith talk, I suggest you go to the podcast, check it out. Here, I promise you I will not get raunchy and raw and all that other stuff because I just don't believe in it. But I am going to tell funny stories. May make some people feel uncomfortable. I'm not sure. It's not my intent. But I can tell you this. We're less formal in this setting. You'll probably hear my chair squeaking. You'll probably hear a canned drink hit the table. There's no notes. There's no prep. There's no nothing. It's me and the microphone. Probably should say this. Probably should start taking notes because it's getting harder and harder as I get older to remember where I stopped and where I need to start. But I do remember that I spoke about my time of joining the fire service and joining the military and all this. So I know I'm kind of right there. So today, I'm going to focus on the fire service. All right. Talk about some funny calls. All right. So I am in the process of trying to get some former firefighters that I used to work with, maybe some current firefighters that are still on the job, to maybe come on here, do a little talking with me and just kind of reminisce and tell some stories. I did speak with a good friend of mine, as you guys know from last episode, who's out in Oklahoma City. I've invited him on to the show, so I'm hoping to get him on. And I need to make a correction to the last episode. The last episode, I spoke about a gaming organization called The Art of War, or better known as TAW, T-A-W. I said that they were a small gaming community. I was wrong, and I should have never said that. So I want to retract that and say they are a very large gaming community. They are huge. They were huge even when I first joined them. I think in the early 2000s, they were huge. So they've been around for a minute, and I'm sure they're still going and running strong. So I wanted to just do that little correction real quick before we get started. All right. So the fire service. Now, joined the fire service, started off as volunteer, as y'all know from the last episode, around the age of 16-ish. Started off with a fire station called Station Number 4, and it was all volunteer back in the day. And then in 1998 time frame, maybe 98, 99-ish, they went paid, and they had the first 30 firemen, or firefighters, I should say, because there were some ladies who were firefighting. But anyway, they were known as the Dirty 30. Now, I will tell you this. I don't think there's many of them left. I think they all pretty much retired, and some of them has lost their life. But majority of them has retired, and there might be like 1 or 2, 3 left that I'm aware of, unless there's been other retirements that I'm not familiar with. So you had the Dirty 30. Then after that, you had the 13, because they hired 13 after that. So I was kind of in the middle of all that when I got hired. Started off, like I said, as a volunteer, went to being a shift worker, which was part-time. I was working for the county and I was doing shifts as much as I could. And then I went and had the opportunity to go full-time, and I took advantage of it. My very first fire station was known as Station Number 8. If you're listening to this and you're familiar with the county that I'm from here in Georgia, you're familiar with most of these fire stations. But anyway, fire station I was at was Station Number 8. It was a 2-bay fire station, older building. It had 3 bunk rooms, 3 beds, 1 bathroom with a shower, a day room / kitchen, and an office space. And when I first started, there was only 1 firefighter per shift on at the firehouse. So I was called B shift. I was on B shift. And there's 3 shifts, A, B, and C. And we had a firefighter who was on A shift, and then I would relieve him. I would be on B shift, still relying on whatever volunteers that we had. And then we had C shift. And understand, when they housed all of us, they spread us out throughout the county, some of the really, really busy houses maybe had 2 firemen in it, but everybody else pretty much had 1. So if you know anything about the fire service, and I'm not talking Chicago Fire, okay? Chicago Fire it is a TV show, all right? I'll talk about that later. But if you know anything about the fire service, when house fires or what they call structure fires are toned out, it takes a lot of manpower to get out there, all right? Because before I get into this story a little bit more, let me give you the makeup. You have, typically in a firehouse or a fire department, you have engines, which are known as pumper trucks. Some old school calls them wagons. They are known by various names. You have engines, you have ladder trucks or tillers. Tillers is usually like a tractor trailer style. It has a tractor and it pulls a 100-foot aerial ladder, if not larger. You do have quints, which is bucket trucks, things of this nature. You have ladder trucks. You have a variety of ways to get on a building. You have rescues. You have heavy rescues. Heavy rescues, they carry a lot more tools. They're more specialized. You have tankers. Tankers is nothing but a big swimming pool on the back of a fire truck. That's all that is. That is nothing more than just a big old swimming pool, okay? You have battalion chief cars. You have all these other things, okay? So, my particular firehouse, and when I first started, had 1 engine. It was an old Suffin. That was the manufacturer. It was a Suffin. 1 engine and 1 tanker. This tanker was a Ford, I want to say like F550 front end with a big steel water tank on the back. Hated that thing. Stick shift. It was basically held together with duct tape and wire, pretty much. I hated carrying that thing out. So I'm on shift. Like I said, typically you run a medical call. You hope you got some volunteers that show up that are medically trained to help you out. But 9 times out of 10, you're going to run a medical call. You're there pretty much by yourself, and you're waiting on a med unit, which was privatized to show up to transport your patient. So my first shift on as a full-time fireman. Man, I am super excited. Been waiting on this day all of my life, and here I go. So I walk into Station 8, talk to the fireman on A shift. We get what we call a pass down. Hey, what did you do? What equipment did you use? Does anything need to be cleaned? So on and so forth. Now, the typical week, because a fireman works usually 24 hours on and 48 off, okay, in rotating shifts, as you could tell. So if you work a Monday, you typically work a Monday, a Thursday, and a Sunday, or a Tuesday, a Friday, and, so on and so forth. So 24, all 48. So I started on a Monday, walked in. Mondays are truck days. Truck days means you take everything out, you scrub the truck from head to toe, you clean everything, you put it back on. Tuesdays back in the day, and it's changed a lot because scheduling's changed, but Tuesdays were typically equipment days. cleaned extra equipment. All right. And also you clean the station. Wednesdays was lawn day. You always had to cut grass, weed eat, and all that. And then Thursdays was training days. Friday was additional bay days if you need to clean the bay of the fire station. Saturdays were makeup days. So if you didn't get a chance to do anything, you made it up on that Saturday. And then Sundays was you try to rest as much as you can, and it allow you to catch up on some stuff. So Monday, here I am walking in the firehouse. Right, shift is from 7 in the morning to 7 the next morning. So I get there. I meet the fireman that's on duty. He's having a cup of coffee. We kind of talk. We do our thing. He leaves. Boom, I'm on shift. And way back in the day, they used to tone us all out. And what I mean by tone is dispatch had a system to where they punched in certain numbers and it would send out a tone that would set off your radio. And they used to tone us out every morning at 7 a.m. And what we had to respond with was Station 8 is in service or Station 1's in service, so on and so forth. This also allowed the chiefs to hear what stations were covered because, like I said, we were one man to an engine. So sometimes there was fire stations that did not have the coverage. And those were fire stations that we would have to cover extra mileage to make sure they're covered with the service. So here I am Monday morning, truck day. Man, I got my engine out there. I got my chest pumped out. I am excited. Here I am, 20-something years old, and I'm a fireman. So I'm cleaning the fire truck, doing everything I need to do, and the tones drop. All right. And the battalion chief had a certain tone that we all knew. Okay. We all knew this tone. And if you heard that battalion chief tone, that only meant one or two things. Meant that there was a wreck with entrapments that the battalion chief was going to need to go on, or there was a structure fire, whether it was commercial, industrial, or residential. Right? Battalion chief tones drop. In Station 8's tones drop. Station 9's tones drop. Station 12 tones drop. Now, you see where I'm going with this? So I'm throwing everything I can back onto the engine as quickly as I can. Get paged out to a structure fire. Smoke and possible fire showing. It's my first due. It means I should be first on scene. Here I am. I get into the fire truck, and let me tell you something, ladies and gentlemen. I am as nervous as I've ever been in my life. Here I go. I'm driving the truck. I'm answering the radio. I'm doing everything that a normal crew would do, but I'm doing it as a one person. Engine 9, Station 9 only had one person. Station 12 had two people. Then you had a training chief that would respond, and you had the battalion chief that would respond. The battalion chief was typically in town at our Station 1 before the county grew and got multiple battalion chiefs. So here I go, taking off. And this is over by the lake. It's in a residential area near the large lake that I spoke about. And if y'all are not familiar with the name, it's called Lake Lanier. And so here I go. Man, lights and sirens blasting. No air conditioning back in these trucks. No headphones or headsets back in these trucks. So you had the radio jacked up as loud as it would go. You had your window rolled down so you could breathe because those trucks get hot. And you had sirens going off. So pretty much you're going to go deaf before you hit the age of 40. And so here I am rocking and rolling, man, and I see the smoke from the distance. And as I'm driving, I key up the radio and I said, Engine 8 to all incoming units, I have heavy smoke showing. That tells them that this is not a BS call. This is a real call. And it also means I need some help. So first thing you did as a one man on the fire engine is you can run right to the fire, pull all your hoses and start doing everything. But your engine only carries 750 gallons of water. 750 gallons of water coming out of an 1 3/4 line trying to fight a fire is only going to last you only about 2 or 3 minutes, and then you're going to be out of water. So the first job you have to do is you got to find a hydrant. You need positive water because nobody's bringing a tanker. So I spot the hydrant. I jump out real quick, pull off we didn't have 5-inch hose back then. We had 3-inch hose, wrapped it, took off down the road to get to the fire. And I called out over the radio, next due in engine, hook up my hydrant. I've dropped lines. So I get there, pull up on the scene. I have a 1-story on a basement, cedar siding, wood frame structure, heavy smoke and fire showing from the seaside. Now, I'm going to explain this to you. Wherever the firefighter or the incident commander stands and looks at whatever they're looking at, that's the A side. So you have A side, and then it goes, clockwise. A side, B side, C side, D side. Okay. So on the back side is where the fire is. Okay. I did my walk around because I have to walk around to identify, have to shut off my utilities. Engine 8 or engine 9's coming. I can hear the sirens. They're coming. All right. Engine 12 is going to take them a minute because they're a little further off. Battalion chief is coming. I can hear him over the radio. Training chief's coming. I can hear him over the radio, and here I am. All right. So now I start pulling the 1 3/4 line. I have all of my gear on. I have my air pack on. I'm setting my truck up into pump, and engine 9 pulls up on the scene. Boom, tells me I have positive water, means they hooked to the hydrant, they turned the hydrant on, I got the hose being filled up coming to the truck. So now what I have to do is I have to set the pump up to where it will flow into the pump or into the tank of the fire truck. And then that way, as I pump water to the hose, we maintain a water supply, but I also keep my tank filled for a backup. And I'll explain why real quick. If you're working off of a hydrant and something should happen to that hydrant or that water line, you lose water pressure or you lose water, your crew will burn up inside of a building if they're not careful. Because if you burn through your tank, whether it's a 750-gallon tank or a 500-gallon tank, if you burn through that and then all you're doing is waiting on that water and you're working off of that water line, it's a bad way. All right, so you never want to do that. So here I am. I'm stretching out lines. I'm doing all of this, and Engine 9 gets here, and now there's 2 of us. Engine 9 is going to make entry because I have to stay and pump the truck. So the one guy on Engine 9, which is dangerous, you never want to put a fireman into a burning building by themselves. He's advancing the hose line, right? And I went to high school with this guy. All right, I'm not going to name them names. I've said that in the first episode. I'm not going to name names. I went to high school with this guy, watched him grow up. We knew each other. We kind of knew how each other did things. And he came from a volunteer firefighter background because his father was a fireman, and he went into the business too. But anyway, so he makes entry. Battalion chief gets on the scene. He has command. So now all I have to do is completely focus on the pump. But the chief says, hey, I need you to back him up on this line. I'm going to watch your pump. Perfect. Not a problem. Here we go. Boom. Running inside the house. Well, while we're doing all of this, now remember, this is happening real time, as fast as you could think that it could happen. And then all of a sudden we're getting told that not everybody's out of the house. Possibly. Well, when I got there, the house was vacant. No cars in the driveway. When I did a walk around, I didn't see anybody. Nobody was standing around. Neighbors started to gather, but nobody was there. Now we're being told possibly somebody's in there. So now not only are we fighting fire, but now we are having to figure out how to do a rescue. Now, remember I was talking about ladder trucks. Back at the very beginning of all this, we only had one ladder truck in the county. It sat in our downtown fire station, and it was only one ladder truck in the county. So they're coming to help us out. But it takes them a minute because that ladder truck was old, and the top speed on that that ladder truck was about 68 miles an hour. So you got to figure they're coming down the highway. Fast they go is 68 miles an hour. That's it, because it's all governed. So Engine 9's on the scene. Engine 12 gets on the scene. They give us their 2 personnel. Now we have basically extra support. So once our air packs back then were 30-minute bottles. Soon as your alarm went off to tell you had low alarm, we had to back out to change our bottles. We would back out to change our bottles, and in engine 12, which had 2 people, would pick up the line and go back in and keep fighting fire. So engine 9, engine 8, engine 12, ladder 1 is coming. We're fighting fire. We get it under control. No victims. House is clear. A lot of fire damage in the basement section of the house. Nobody is hurt. So all of that excitement, all of that drama, all of that just blood pumping situation happens in the matter of a few minutes that could last 30 minutes to an hour. Now it's called cleanup time. Mopping up is the worst thing ever, because now you got to pick up all these hoses. You got to put all these hoses back on your fire truck. Now you got to go back to the firehouse, pull all those hoses off, wash them, and put them right back on your truck. All right. So what you try to do as a one man on an engine was, whoever the first due is, you hope they pull all their hose, because then you didn't have to. So I had to pull the hose. I got to write the fire report. I have to repack the truck. I have to do all of this. Okay. But back then, as a one man per station, one of the things that we all knew was each station, we would go out of service to go over to help the other person repack their truck. It put more work on other stations, because now their responding times just got larger, but that was the way it had to be back then. And so we would go out of service and wash all the hoses, put it back on the truck, so on and so forth. Then you're going to pretty much spend the rest of the day writing this report. And we didn't have a whole lot of computers back then. All right. We were writing pretty much hand reports. And so you had a few things that you could type, but everything else was hand report, carbon copied. And you had to make sure everything was right, because if there was an investigator getting involved, they would have to be able to work off of your report. All right. So that was the very first day at Station 8. Caught a house fire right off the bat. Scared to death, a young kid fighting fire. But at the end of the day, I was exhausted. I was tired. But man, I loved it. Man, I loved it. It's the greatest job in the world. All right. I get to run inside burning buildings. This is awesome. So I did a lot more at Station 8 for a long time before I was moved to, my next station after 8 was Station 4. So I will get into that next time, because we're at our 22-minute mark and I don't want to bore y'all too much, okay? Station 8 has some cool stuff. Next episode, I might tell 1 or 2 more stories about Station 8. Then I'll talk about going to Station 4 and all of the crazy things that happen at Station 4, okay? So thank you so much, guys, for listening, for being a part of the show, for supporting and all of this, okay? And I promise you, we will get into some military stories too. I want to get y'all a little bit down the road, because I spent nearly 20 years in the fire service. So I have a lot of stories to tell. All right. So once again, thank you so much. If you want to, check out Jesus and a Cup of Joe. Share this with your friends and family if you find it entertaining. If you have any questions, want to know anything about the fire service or the equipment or things I talked about, just reach out to me. I'd be more than happy to get back with you. All right. So this is the RB Experience. Thank you so much for listening, and we'll catch you next time.